Good morning. I've got another topic I want to talk about. If I hadn't been so busy, there'd have been like about 20 videos by now, which is probably a good thing because with my ADHD, I do overload and probably exhaust some people. Well, not probably, I do. So the subject I wanted to talk about was what some people call meltdowns, and I have called them that myself. But I kind of feel like it doesn't do justice for what it actually is and what the experience is. That's just my personal opinion. So I would probably call it maybe what it is, which is information overload, stimulation overload, sensory overload um, when this happens. So there's a reason for it. Uh, Being autistic, we depending on the autistic person, then it depends how they process information. Um, Unique to them. So for some people, visual stimulation is too much. Some people, words, information to process is too much. Smells is too much. Too many things to do at once is too much. Um, and or some people have got all of those. I haven't got all of those. I have a visual overload and an information overload, which completely contradicts the person I am because when I give information, I give way too much. But because of my ADHD, my brain works really fast, so it comes out like that. But when someone's giving me it, I can't. It will distress me, so I have to have it in bullet points, written down, or write it down myself. I've had to I have managed to train myself with some things to pick out information so I don't hear it all. But I still go from one room to the next and completely forget what somebody's told me. It's just totally gone because my brain is overloaded. So there are like for some people ways of doing it, or for other people, the people around them, if they can consider these things and help that person not get to a point of an overload. Because when an overload happens, I know this is a strong word, but I have some reoccurring memories of some of mine. It can be traumatic when the overload happens, because some of us feel different in this world, and then when we display a part of I wouldn't say it's personality, I would just say it's a result of something, part of that part of us, it shocks people. And it can make them afraid of us sometimes. It can make them doubt us. It makes us look like we have a completely different personality from the one that some of us say, like, you've got a really caring, gentle, thoughtful personality, and then suddenly this overload happens, and then people are like, "Ooh, I don't really know you," and then that's really sad for us. So, because that's misunderstood, and I find it's misunderstood an awful lot, because prevention is what we want here. Really, this is my viewpoint. Prevention. So when somebody has overloads, sensory overload, stimulation overload, a good way of trying to avoid those for the person, because it's traumatic for the person. It can be, sorry, a strong word, very upsetting maybe for some. It used to be traumatic for me. Good way, and upsetting for the people around them. A good way, I think, is to find out what way that person processes, what way that person takes in information, what way that person can avoid things that affect them, make their world as much as possible suited to them, because it's also potentially dangerous. I think sometimes, I know that when I didn't put these things in place for myself, I wouldn't know what I was doing sometimes because the distress was so much. So for some people it can be potentially dangerous. You could like run out into a road, or so I really think that working out what that individual person needs. And some people, which I get really tired of hearing, to be honest, say, oh, well, you got to get used to the world. You shouldn't be made, treated differently. You shouldn't, you shouldn't have these special measures in place. And that is personally, for me, someone who has never had a stimulation overload, because they wouldn't say that if they had, or if they knew what it was like. It's not a choice. It's something that happens, and it's something that needs to be looked after. Autistic people, and ADHD are wonderful qualities in people, but it needs to be looked after. It's a precious thing. It's beautiful things come from us, but it should be taken care of and looked after, just like if anybody had, somebody, because it's always an example we use, isn't it? If somebody couldn't use their legs, they'd have a wheelchair, they'd have lifts ready to take them up to the floor, and I just using a very bad example. Sorry, I apologise, but I'm just saying that those measures are put in place, and I know they have their own problems of getting about and doing things, don't they? And it's being like, in their situation. But what I'm just trying to say is that it's not a made up thing. This is real, and needs to be understood and accepted. And then one day it will have to be, because there's more and more neurodivergent people out there, and the world, I think, should welcome everyone. And when they say, oh, you shouldn't treat this person differently, but this person isn't the same as you, and we do get treated differently. We get judged. So I would say prevention. Make a list. Find out for that person, or if they can't recognise it themselves, which is very, very common, by the way. So don't feel bad if you can't recognise it, because I get that as well from some people. They say, oh, but such and such is okay in this situation, but that's not them. It's a completely different experience for some people. And well, why didn't they say? We said we'd help, because they didn't know. They didn't know that experience was going to affect them that way. Because whenever sometimes somebody, if it's traumatic, that overload, what happens with trauma is you blank it, you forget about it, because you don't want to think about it again, because it's too upsetting. So some people won't recognise it. Some people need the help to recognise it and say, is this what happens? And help them and talk to them, obviously not interrogate them. And it has to be for a neurodivergent at a time where they're relaxed, where they're willing to be open to talk about it, because otherwise it could be quite, another word I'm not keen on, which is triggering. It can really create a problem. So you've got to pick your times to help them work it out. Some people will know. I worked mine out slowly. Another thing I want to say is, so what if an overload happens? So I wouldn't confront that person, depending on the person and how they are. I would give them room and space for a while, because they're going to have to come back down from it, and make sure that people are safe around them. I used to step out of a room and that was the best thing I could do at that time. They didn't feel it was a rejection. Some people might feel it's a rejection, so we've got to be careful how we deal with this. But also, if after they've had that, they will feel a lot of guilt sometimes and feel really bad about it. So I wouldn't tell them off. I personally never did that, because that is just, some people get told off for their overloads, and it's unkind, I find, because they're already really upset. They already feel bad afterwards, and when they process it all and what happened, and then they worry about who they are and why they did that, and how could they do that when they care about things, and so this is not a nice experience. This is not fun. This is not, okay, I'm going to make my presence known. So once they've calmed down, probably reassurance is quite key. Communication could be quite key, depending on if words too much for them, so depending. Allowing them to come and talk if they want to, and probably calming things like weighted blanket, time to recover, low lights, maybe something that makes them happy. So it might be material, so it might be a soft cushion or a cuddly toy or a doll, and I've got them, by the way, and I'm an adult. Mine brings me a lot of comfort. It shouldn't even be judged that way, should it? And anything that can help them that is soothing. Maybe, I don't know, for them, if they don't mind water, bath, things to bring them back. And for some people, after an overload, it can last a while after. It could be days, even a couple of weeks for some people. I had an overload which I didn't see coming before Christmas, and it lasted 2 weeks. I was still coming from it. And the problem when you have an overload is every decision and thing you do after that becomes a task, well, even more so of a task, because you're affected by your nerves. My anxiety was high then, so I couldn't really speak to people very well without having a backlash of doubt and things like that of who I was. And so it can take a while. So this is why I realised that if it's possible, prevention before that happens in a kind way, to help that person deal with their sensory or their stimulation overloads, whatever it is for them. So there are things as well you can spot out for signs of somebody becoming agitated and a meltdown coming. And that is, you can say, sometimes you can just sense it in a person, their stimming and their way they are. Their eyes are moving maybe too much, or they're breathing small, or they're snappy, or you can just see generally they look a bit agitated. And if you, with somebody neurodivergent that's happened, stepping back is a really good idea. Being calm, I think, depending on what their triggers are, whatever it is that might, so say someone I speak to doesn't like the word independence. So if I said independence at that moment, that would not be a good idea. It would be unfair. So I'm just wrong. So so there are like signs of, you can tell when somebody's getting one. Don't push them too far, and they're going to need, at that point, maybe they might recognize it in themselves. So they might have things with them that they go, oh yes, I am feeling agitated, I'll go and listen to some music away from people. Maybe that day, not too much talking, not too much communication, not too many words. That day, just step back and let them come back down again. Not too many demands or requests. Sometimes for someone neurodivergent, 2 tasks in a day is enough. If one of those tasks doesn't work out, it could create a problem then. So it's just recognising that person. So a way I keep anxiety down is by this. So you don't have to have things that are obvious. This, I think, okay, I'm getting a little bit agitated. I'll start spinning this around a little bit of breathing. and an important thing I find as well is to say it's okay. It's okay. Um, I'm not a bad person. Um, I'm not, going to be, judging myself like other people have judged. I'm going to look after myself and I'm going to love myself. And this is okay. And I do find that makes my overloads last much, not as long at all. I can get over them quick, and then I don't feel that guilt that reoccurs after, which then makes me doubt myself, which then makes me get agitated. So it's important to have nice self-talk, I find, after or just before, if you can preempt it, if you can feel it starting to happen. Maybe try and get to know your body if you can, but I know a lot of neurodivergent don't have the ability to feel their bodies. So sometimes having other people around you that can help you notice that might be a good thing. I'm sure there's loads more I could say, but I've been talking for 16 minutes. Sorry. Okay. Have a good day, and I hope that helps. Bye all.